Our next one, and Michael has left us, but hopefully he will listen to this later down the line. He had to go to bed. Understandable, it's very late on the East Coast. Swan, could you delve deeper into your personal opinion on when it is proper to stand or kneel in worship or oath swearing?
Ooh. Well, I think there's quite a bit of there's a bit of that. One thing is I think you actually when you were my mentor for the Gothi program, something you said really hit home was, if you're willing to stand up for a judge, if you're willing to put a tie on for a judge, but you're not willing to show respect and dress well for your gods, you got a problem. Like this is the wrong way of placing your efforts. And that really did hit home to me. And it opened up a great amount of the way that we do show respect in the military and in the Marine Corps. When an officer enters a room, you stand up and you yell out that there's an officer on deck, and everyone stands up, or you salute. There's these traditions of showing respect without necessarily prostrating yourself. And again, I think prostration is built on the nature of the relationship. And if your nature is fear, if your nature is to fear some sort of retribution because you are not, I don't know, perhaps eating the right things or sitting in the right places where a woman, is unclean, or eating shellfish, or any number of lists of things in which you fear that you're going against this list, and that the ultimate outcome is detrimental, then that is the source of your prostration, is fear, the fear of breaking those rules. Instead, if you go with, I wish to have someone witness my respect for them because of their honored position in my life, that is not prostration. That is noble. And it shows a sense that you are willing and wanting for that person to know that you have a great amount of respect for them. And it is not based out of fear, but it's based out of their station. And I can see no higher station than that of the gods. So why not give them any sort of sense of an honor? And it can be placed. And that's what I think is interesting about your question, is it can be placed at certain times. There are times in which you would stand up and give praise to the gods. There are times when you can kneel or sit and give praise to the gods. I have a tendency to look at them as more internal, external, amongst community and or outside. Oftentimes it is much better, in a sense, to stand, to perhaps hold arms up, head up, and to give a hailing to the gods based out of the situation that you're in. Whereas indoors, before harrows and before even personal home harrows, I kneel. I kneel sometimes one-legged. Sometimes I even have a chair that is a kneeling chair that oftentimes is applied. So I think that there is the right time, but ultimately it's based on the caveat of, are you fearful or are you giving honor because of station? And I think that no one in certain other religions can actually say they're giving honor in station, because their entire religion is predicated on fear. So they cannot separate that, but we can. And so then it would be very much the highest point is to give respect to the highest of gods, the high gods themselves, the ones above all and in the place above. At that point, I have absolutely no problem showing honorific gestures. And as long as they're done authentically, I don't think that they should be done. I don't think that people should be doing these gestures just for the sake of doing them. They have a measurement of purpose. And again, movement during ceremony is important. we walk into areas, we circle around areas, we kneel down, we stand up, we hold our arms up, we take sacred vessel, we lean forward. Sometimes we hold our hands forward to take anointment or sprinkling. There's a lot of movement and ceremony, and it isn't just, again, the hyper focus on kneeling, standing, or what have you. I think it's just all part of it, and people focus way too much because, again, they don't want to go into the religion with a predication of fear, and I don't think that that's even present for us, so why not do it?
I know that this was specifically asked of Svan, but I would really like to speak on this. When I talked about things that we need to unlearn, one of the sacred cows, if you will, of Asatru originally was this, chest thumping, I don't kneel before my gods, I stand and the gods are my friends. And I can't even say it without having a disrespectful tone to it. I get where people were coming from. There was an attitude at the beginning to define Asatru by it being anti-Christian. So everything the Christians did, we needed to do the opposite. And that's a first step, but ultimately it's wrongheaded. Asatru, the rights and wrongs of Asatru are decided by Asatru, not in response to a foreign creed and what they do, but in a response to what our ancestors valued and what they didn't, what's noble to do and what's not. So one of the ideas was, well, we're Asatru because, Christians are subservient and kneel, and we don't kneel because we're...
People focus way too much because, again, they don't want to go into the religion with a predication of fear, and I don't think that that's even present for us, so why not do it?
I know that this was specifically asked of Svan, but I would really like to speak on this. When I talked about things that we need to unlearn, one of the sacred cows, if you will, of Asatru originally was this, chest thumping, I don't kneel before my gods, I stand and the gods are my friends. And I can't even say it without having a disrespectful tone to it. I get where people were coming from. There was an attitude at the beginning to define Asatru by it being anti-Christian. So everything the Christians did, we needed to do the opposite. And that's a first step, but ultimately it's wrongheaded. Asatru, the rights and wrongs of Asatru are decided by Asatru, not in response to a foreign creed and what they do, but in a response to what our ancestors valued and what they didn't, what's noble to do and what's not. So one of the ideas was, well, we're Asatru because, Christians are subservient and kneel, and we don't kneel because we're every individual's their own, whatever. Again, that's an overreaction. You're absolutely right. Christianity is about submission to their God that demands they kneel and also demands they don't have pride or dignity in themselves, that they're saved by faith alone and not by works that none should boast. That religion is very foreign to ours. But yes, one of the hallmarks of that is a demand that everyone kneel and must have this forced submission to their God. You don't have to kneel in Asatru. But I think you should consider why you think what you think, and if it's baggage from something else, or if it's an actual tenet of our faith. Worship is our word. There, the Jewish word is something else. Worship comes from worthship, which means to apply worth to something or to recognize and, acknowledge that relative worth. Our gods are worthy of worship. They are our gods. They are worthy of recognizing that. And I think that there is an internal trauma if we have a person who refuses to kneel before their gods, but will go visit me at my martial arts class and doesn't think twice about kneeling and bowing. Or goes to court, all rise, the Honorable so-and-so presiding. They'll rise for that judge, and they'll sit down when they're told to sit. They'll, join the military, and they will stand at attention and salute superior officers. So they recognize rank and superiority, but they wouldn't kneel before the great gods of our folk. That tells me it's an internal issue with them and their perception of what they feel kneeling represents. And again, they don't have to. The standard stance of worship in the AFA is standing in the Allegese pose with arms upstretched towards the heavens. But something is wrong, and it is standing in the Allegese pose with arms upstretched towards the heavens. But something is wrong, and it tells me that either there is something mentally that has caused you to feel that the act of kneeling is some humiliation towards yourself, which it's not in and of itself, or that you must not really conceive of our gods as real. If a literal God appears before you, one of your gods that you are loyal to, and you wouldn't take a knee, but you would towards a king, if you would kneel before your king, certainly you should kneel before our gods. The one, if you would do the one, then you should certainly do the other. If you're willing to do acts of showing respect for authority, and you recognize the authority of officers or of judges or of any other number of people that you see as a legitimate authority, it tells me that you don't see our gods in that way. And that's something that needs to be rectified. But the act of kneeling isn't humiliating. Everyone who is knighted and received knighthood would kneel before their monarch to be knighted, the king of their folk. There's no shame in that. As a matter of fact, there's a great dignity in recognizing your place in a hierarchy and embracing that with respect. That's a dignified thing, not a humiliation. Context is everything. If the foreign invader demands you bow before them, that's something different. If someone, in an attempt to humiliate you as a conqueror, makes you bow in subjugation, that's different. But bowing in worship and respect for your gods, that's beautiful. And I don't think there's anything terrible about that. But I know that a lot of people come with some baggage on it, and I do know that that's something that was stressed early on in Asatru a lot, is this rugged individualism that we've talked about, and a rejection of anything that Christians do. And a big part of that was the idea that we don't kneel before our gods. Our gods are gods. They're not our homies. They're not like our buddies. There's no equality. We live in illusion if we pretend that's the case. No, our gods are real, and they are gods. And we revere them and worship them. That's what one does towards gods of his folk. Yes, I don't want to beat that one up, but that's an important thing, and I know it's something that, especially for folks that, depending where they found Asatru and under what concept they were taught our faith, can start with some initial, resistance to that as an idea. Next up, Matt and Svan, have either of you seen the Vikings TV show?
Walking through M. You're fucking retarded!
Volar hasta el cielo, siempre en alto. La verdad se sabrá con el triunfo del mañana. Alumbra el camino, brillará esa luz, es la de Soldier Dream. Con fuerza y con valor, activando el cosmos, el mundo brillará. Tan solo di que sí, Senseiya. Sabrás conmigo que es la libertad. Vive tus sueños y llegarás al Senseiya. Sabrás conmigo que es la libertad. Vive tus sueños y llegarás al fin.